Welcome everyone. If you're watching this video and you've ever wondered why it is the way that you think, behave, and act, and why everyone around you seems to be acting differently than you are, then I think the Enneagram could be the tool you've been looking for. And so whether if you've never heard of the Enneagram, if you're someone that loves the Enneagram, or if you've outright been skeptic of it, I think this video is for you. And the Enneagram, I don't believe, is just another personality test. I think that this is something unique and different from other personality tests out there, because usually personality tests are usually something that is fixed, you cannot change, where the Enneagram is really a dynamic tool to help you to grow and develop yourself and to be emotionally aware of yourself. But ultimately, it's the tool that I use to drive us to Scripture to point out in areas where we can ultimately heal. And so if you're here and you're checking this video out, welcome. And so I want to start off with what is the Enneagram ultimately? And really just the word Enneagram is, you get Enna and Gram, two separate words that get put together. So Enna means 9 and Grams means picture or drawing. And so what you get is, if you ever type in or Google Enneagram, usually you're going to get this kind of circle picture and 9 different points, and usually lines or arrows going all these different directions. And that's really all that it is. It's a picture with 9 points of the 9 basic different motivations of people. And so that's all the picture is. But really the Enneagram, the true power of the Enneagram, it gets after, it's not what you do, but why you do something. And that's the difference between other personality tests and the Enneagram. Because the Enneagram really gets after our core fears, desires, our weaknesses, and really ultimately what our heart desires. And a lot of times, this is more of an unconscious thing that we're not even aware of. And so our goal with the Enneagram is to be aware of these unconscious things so we can actually change our habits and patterns. And so my coach, she said that I think of it as everyone's wearing different shades of glasses. And everyone's looking through these different lenses with a different shade. And really what that means is people focus on different things. And the beautiful thing is, when you got all the numbers together, everyone is focusing on something slightly different. Not wrong, just different. And now with that, there are healthier and unhealthier ways that people can look at the world. And this is why when something happens, different people respond differently. Some are taking into action, some are just kind of processing, standing still, and none of that is wrong, but it's understanding what is the best way that we can operate in that. And so some people say the Enneagram, they don't like it because I don't want to be put into a box. And I usually make the joke as, well, you're already in that box, so let's turn on the lights so that you can operate in your box that you're in. But ultimately, think of it as, the best way I've heard is, think of it as you're in a car and you're driving. And when you first learn how to drive, you don't know how to operate the car. You're all shaky, you're nervous, changing lanes, merging onto highways, and let's not forget parallel parking, which most of us don't even do anyways. But that's what the Enneagram is like, is when you first get into a car, you're panicking and you're worried about all this other stuff, all these other people around you. But once you become confident in driving, it's a lot easier. And that's the goal of the Enneagram, is to not just to understand ourselves better, understand where these emotions are coming from, why it is the way I think and act and behave in certain situations. Because when we can do that, we can actually change the habits and get actually the outcome in life that we're looking for. And so it comes down to emotional intelligence. It's one of the most, when they do studies of emotional intelligence, they find that it's better than intelligence. Because once you're aware of the reason why I'm thinking, the reason why, what emotion is coming up during this time, and you're aware of it, you're able to better navigate that through life. And usually people end up find out that they're making wiser decisions because of that. So let's address, why do people not like the Enneagram? Well, there's few different reasons that I've heard and I've read why people don't like the Enneagram. The first one, it's critical. And it can come off as that way sometimes because the Enneagram, what it really does, it gets after our most vulnerable sides and weaknesses. It exposes us a bit. And so what happens is when we expose ourselves, that what happens is there are these insecurities that come up because people have told us things about ourselves, usually not in a helpful way. And so when the Enneagram shows up, what happens is there is those insecurities that arise. And so I understand completely that those insecurities are there and we're going to work through those. The next one, it's just another personality test. And like I said before, personality tests are usually fixed. So if you've ever taken like the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, or the Strength Finder, your top 5 strengths, the thing is about those is they're fixed. Like the Myers-Briggs. Introvert, extrovert, you really cannot change if you're more extroverted or if you're more introverted. It's kind of fixed. There it is. And like your top 5 strengths, if you've taken the top 5 strengths, they typically say they will not change. They are fixed. They're going to be there forever. And it's good to be aware of those, and they're very helpful in their appropriate place. The Enneagram's a little bit different. Even though you won't change a number, however, there are those arrows and lines. If you ever see a picture, there's arrows and lines going from and to other numbers, and those are your growth tracks. That lets you know if you're heading into a more of a healthy version of you or not so healthy version of you. And so with the Enneagram, it's more dynamic in that sense because we're able to actually do something different. But a lot of times we have to engage parts of us that we don't like. And one of the things I always tell people, to grow in the Enneagram, you have to face your fears, because what you really want is on the other side of fear. And so that's the difference between other personality tests and Enneagram. But a lot of times Enneagram gets lumped into the personality test, even though it's not one of those. And finally, people will say, I always laugh at this one because they say it's unbiblical. And I laugh because the Enneagram, you'll not find the word in there at all. I've studied the Bible. You won't find it. It's not there. Now, really, the better question is, it's not unbiblical, but can this be a tool to get us to the Bible? And that is where I found it to be helpful for me. And so with that said, I think the Enneagram, you don't need it, but it's helpful because I use it as a tool to get us to Scripture. And that's the true healing and transformation power, is the Bible. And finally, who loves the Enneagram? People that have loved the Enneagram and use it's for a self-awareness tool, because one of the things that is so helpful is to understand, what are these emotions that are arising? Why is it the way that I'm thinking in this moment? Because there's so many times where we respond in a certain way, and we usually respond in an unhealthy way, either an aggressive or a defensive stance, and instead we don't engage in these emotions that we don't like in a healthy way. And so that's what the Enneagram does. It gives us practicing tools to engage in parts of us that we don't like. And then also, second of all, it helps with empathy, understanding that the people around us, the people that we love, the people that we work with, they don't see the world that we do. And that is completely fine. And it's actually, when you understand different numbers' perspectives and how they look at the world, it actually becomes very helpful in understanding their viewpoint. And thirdly, it's like I said, it helps us with growth, because when you look at the Enneagram and you see those different numbers and you see those arrows, it shows you that there's a healthier version of you when you stop chasing things that you're desiring, and stop running from the things that you're fearing. And when you start actually facing those, you'll actually get what you truly want. And so kind of this personal kind of testimony is that, how has this impacted me personally? There's been many times I'll sit in an office, someone will say something, and then an emotion will rise, and I'm sitting here, either an insecurity comes up or an emotion that maybe I don't like, maybe like, why am I getting angry at this point? But because I've done work in the Enneagram, I'm now more aware of myself, of where it's coming from. And now I can kind of do a little bit self-talk, or I have usually some scripture to kind of quote to myself. And that has significantly helped me in those moments, because now I'm not operating in a place out of insecurity or out of an unhealthy emotion. And I usually can process it in real time. And now I can just respond more healthily internally and externally in a group, but also relationally with my spouse. It has helped a lot because we have different viewpoints. And not only that, on the Enneagram, we're like opposite in many ways. And so it has helped us just by giving us a language to communicate, to understand internally what's going on. That has helped immensely in that area. But also too, when I noticed stuff about my weaknesses and insecurities about my number, one thing I noticed is that scripture actually spoke to these specific issues. And it actually over time has allowed me to develop a relationship with God I didn't have before. And now I'm more comfortable with my uncomfortabilities, and I'm trusting in God in areas that I didn't trust God before. So it is a helpful tool to get me to places in scripture to find healing with God. And finally, that leads me up to my a point of how does the gospel, the Bible, and the Enneagram kind of mesh together? Well, it meshes together in kind of like a powerful way, because the Enneagram, all it is just a tool, but it's an incomplete tool, because it can't truly fix our soul, but it can get us to parts of Scripture that actually can heal our soul. And that's what I really like about it. So example, I'm an Enneagram 2. And so one of the things is about 2 is unconsciously we are the group that are probably the most people pleasers. And this was an unconscious thing for me for a long time. Even though other people around me were aware of it, I was unaware of it. And so when I first started doing research on this, I was like, I don't do this. But then everyone around me was like, no, you do that. And I'm like, crap. Okay, fine. But one of the things that I found to help with this was scripture. And the Bible verse that really speaks to this is the Galatians 1:10. And I'm reading out of the NLT version. And it says, am I trying to win approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? And if I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant to Christ. And even though 2s like to love people, a lot of times there's a hidden string attached to their loving, and the goal of it is to cut that string and to truly love people. Because once you start becoming a string attached to your love, the problem is you become people pleasing. You start caring too much what people think about you, and you stop caring about what God already says about you. And so a few ways that translate is that sometimes I won't say something because if I say it, they won't like me if I say it, even though it's truth. Well, guess what I've done in that moment? I've forgotten the truth that God's already given me, and I care about what they think of me than what God thinks of me. And so now I'm able to wrestle in that moment, and I always have a reminder of Scripture to, am I caring about what people think of me, or do I care about what God thinks of me? And that's the power of the Enneagram, really, because it shows our brokenness, but it also can lead us to the truth of what God says about us and what Scripture says. And that's where the healing and transformation takes place. And so if you've been curious about the Enneagram, or if you've been hesitant to jump in, or if you love it, I hope these videos are helpful, because I'm going to be posting more videos going a deep dive into more of our weaknesses of each number and how to grow and how the Bible can actually heal us. And so look out for those videos. And also, too, comment below if you are someone that, you know what, I don't like the Enneagram for these reasons, and I love the Enneagram, or hey, I've never heard of Enneagram, and probably my dyslexic would be, I'd misspell it anyways. And so let me know what you think. Also, if you're someone that, hey, I would like to know more about the Enneagram right now, all you have to do is click the link in the description, and I have a free PDF file for you that you can download and start your journey now. So until then, I'll see you guys next week.